Hello and welcome to the Dash News podcast, episode 84. And I'd just like to introduce my two fellow hosts, Joel Valenzuela. How are you?
Peace.
Good. And we're joined by Justin again. How's it going, Justin?
Hey, everyone. Pretty good. How about yourself? Yourself
Brian,
and
you
the
sound
wider
different.
audience.
Yeah, it's episode 84. And I'd just like to take this opportunity before we introduce our special guest, just to say thank you to the community for voting for Dash Force. For those that have voted, there's still time to vote if you haven't. We are past that green line at the moment, but we're in the final. I think there's only something like 12 hours left. So if you haven't voted, make sure you go vote. But those that have voted, sincerely, thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, remember that this is sometimes I got to pinch myself that we get to do what we do for a living, like that we get to, this is the kind of stuff that like so many people get jealous of. Well, you get to do this, you get to work on that. It's so cool. And so, yeah, never forget. Sometimes I have to step back and think, and yeah, we're going to keep on doing what we do best.
And one of the really cool things we get to do is
feeding Justin his cornflakes so he doesn't starve.
Apart from feeding cornflakes to Justin, one of the cool things we get to do is talk to people in the Dash community, like Yuri from Dash Nexus. How's it going, Yuri?
Hey, everyone.
Excellent. So, I really appreciate you coming on because there's a lot of fun stuff happening in Dash Nexus, and there's some exciting things to announce as well. So I'm hoping we can get an update, learn where you're at, things to come. So let's just start from the very beginning. What's the current status of Dash Nexus? Where are you at right now?
Well, Mark, I think you're going to be hearing a lot more from us over the next several weeks, but currently we're launching into our release. It's been well over a year's work. The first half a year of work was internally, before we posted the proposal, thinking about the designs, working with UX experts, working with designers, putting together initial concepts, putting out that initial proposal, and really taking half a year to think the concept through, holding a bidding round with about 30 different development agencies from all around the world, and before we arrived at STRV. And then the second half of the year was really all about development. So heads down, building it. I know we've spoken a couple times and showed what the work in progress has been like, and we're now finally ready to release the MVP. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about which functionality is enabled, which functionality will be enabled very shortly. But basically, as soon as this proposal cycle closes, we're going to begin setting up the redirect from the leaderboard that everybody's been seeing over the last few months to the full Nexus platform. And if you've been using the leaderboard recently, you probably realized that if you click through the proposal, you end up on the actual Nexus platform and are able to start playing around there, setting up user accounts, adding master nodes.
DashNexus.org, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So if you're going to be going live for the January cycle, Justin and the community want to know is when can they go on to sign up and create their accounts?
You can do it now.
You can do it right now. There you go, people. Don't stop watching this podcast, okay? Unless you can open up multiple windows and multitask, you can do that. That's okay. So, okay, how can they do that right now?
So let me share a link real quick to make it easier to access the full platform before the redirect is set up. You could add it to the video, I believe, right?
Yeah, only me and Joel can add links into the live chat. So, Joel, if you'd be so kind to do that, that'd be awesome.
What's that?
Okay, well, I'll do it. No worries.
Whichever one of you guys. Yeah, but you could share the link for.
Here we go. Right. So if people click on that link, so it's app.dashnexus.org/proposals. So that link is now in the live chat. So if they click through to that, then they will see the proposal lineup.
Yep, exactly. And after the voting cycle closes and the hecticness goes down a little bit, we're going to have the regular dashnexus.org basically point to the same location.
And does this sign up for community members, or is it strictly just for masternode owners, or is it for everyone?
It's for everybody. You first sign up as a community member, and then when you visit your user profile in the top right, you'll arrive on the screen. You're able to go into the user profile settings, add basic information about yourself, where you are, what your name is, profile picture, little blurb about yourself. And at the bottom, you'll see several tabs, one of which is My Masternodes, where you should be able to go in and connect your masternode and voting keys for on-platform voting. Now, this is all up there and has been tested on Testnet, but I have to give everybody a warning that Testnet for the last couple months has been running on version 13, whereas Mainnet is still currently on version 12.3. And this beta release, while you're able to go in and see all of the functionality, it may have some bugs because of the inconsistency between the two versions. What we're really waiting on until announcing a full proper release is for Dash Core to flip the switch on for 13.0 to go live on Mainnet, after which we'll do a couple more days of testing, and then all of the functionality should be live and fully supported. So if there's any bugs for now, we'd love to hear about them. We'll do what we can to address them in the interim, but they may be expected before everything is properly migrated. That's
really interesting. So what people are seeing right now isn't the finished article. This is just the beta. So what they'll see in the January cycle is, so this is not the finished thing, but they can create counts, and the accounts that they create, they can keep.
It's basically the finished thing, with some potential for bugs because of the inconsistencies, because of the versioning.
Right. I just want to pick you up on what you just said previously. So you said that it's working on 13 testnet. So just to break it down to make it more simple for people listening that might be new to Dash. So what features and functionalities is Dash Nexus using from 13 in the testnet? Why have you taken that approach? Why did you have to do that?
So there's a change in how voting keys and masternodes are treated between version 12 and version 13. And there's some changes as well in how the governance objects are treated. So the second functionality that's temporarily disabled in the current beta is on-platform proposal submission. So actually being able to pay 5-Dash not through the core wallet, but directly on the Nexus platform to turn your concept into a proposal. This functionality is tested and working again on Testnet, but because of how the governance objects are treated, it's temporarily disabled on the Mainnet release.
That's pretty major. I know we spoke about this a long time ago, but I actually forgot about this. So for those proposal owners out there, when you set up a proposal and you send the file, it can take a long time before you can put in the details on Dash Central and stuff. Are you saying that's no longer going to be a hindrance? It's going to be a lot more streamlined?
That's right. As of now, every proposal owner or anybody with an idea can go in and use our proposal creator tool to make a concept and publish it, and everybody else on the Nexus platform will be able to see it, begin interacting, leaving comments, leaving feedback. And then all it takes to go from that to a live proposal is paying 5-Dash on platform. Again, with a caveat that that feature is going to be enabled when 13.0 goes live.
Right. Before you joined us, Yuri, I was talking to Joel about moderation and comments and stuff, and Joel has some thoughts. Joel, do you want to elaborate on those? I think we're talking about the upvoting, downvoting, and whatnot.
Yeah. So obviously, Dash is a revolutionary system. Crypto in general is just, everything is just new. And one of the interesting new things about an on-chain governance system, especially stripped down as this, is literally anyone can assemble 1,000 units of this new digital money stuff, which, you know, a lot harder than just do it these days. But I'm saying in the day, there have been plenty of people that just said, I'm just going to run a little program on my laptop here. Oh, I got 1,000 Darkcoin now. And then now those people are like boardroom execs able to vote for proposals and like a giant company kind of structure. So, vast amounts of money they can control, and then therefore, these people can vote. And so how to deal with that has been very interesting over the years, where you have like a platform where people kind of, because the Dash proposal system, now you've looked into the guts of this before. I kind of came in the Dash Central era, where Dash Central is an interface that goes on top of it. Without Dash Central, what is there actually in Dash protocol level about the proposal system? Like what's actually there? Like you got a proposal name, I'm sure. Like
Yep. So they're created as governance objects, which the community can vote on. And what's interesting is that this isn't necessarily permanent. This can all change with the release of Evolution, with the release of the DAPI, and generally with the changing needs of the community and the masternode network and CORS initiatives, etc. So the way the governance objects are set up right now and the limitations that they have might not always be there. The one of the most amazing things about the Dash network is that it's able to evolve. So if at some point Dash community comes together and decides that a 2-month cycle is better than a 1-month cycle, that can be enacted. Or if no cycle at all and more of a rolling treasury is a better way to distribute funds, even something like that can be created. And this presents some interesting challenges for us building out Nexus, the governance system, because we have to be mindful of how the existing governance objects work and what are the restrictions and how to interact with them, as well as what can come in the future. And basically the tier 2 solutions such as Nexus or Dash Central, like what can we do to be able to adopt and evolve as the network itself evolves.
Yeah. So how did people vote for anything on tier 1? Like, did they just kind of like ran a little command line thing, saw names of proposals and just voted yes or no, and that's it? Is that all they had?
I believe so. I believe it was primarily done through the Dash forums before Dash Central came.
Yeah, before Dash Central, it was called like Dash Whale.
Dash Whale.
For those that remember back in the day. But I mean, it was...
Which is hilarious now. I think that, I don't know if that would fly today, call it Dash Whale.
Yeah, but at the same time, the needs of the ecosystem were different. The budgets were larger in Dash, but much smaller in dollars and much smaller impact. It was at level of pizza parties and housewarmings. And it was single-digit proposals per month versus 40 or 50 or 60 new proposals that people have to evaluate. And the community was also much smaller, so it's easier to communicate. Now that the community has grown and that there are more master node owners than there were before, they're coming in with different perspectives and moderation or otherwise, but finding that balance is of communication and productivity is definitely something we're trying to address.
Yeah, that's funny because like I came into this later, like mid 2016 I started paying attention, but the way I kind of saw that how rugged just the raw Dash part of it is when Pivx, they had a broken treasury for a long time, just didn't work. And they didn't tell people, but it didn't work. And then when they fixed it, and then I just saw their little treasury, and I was like, being this like weird just name hash vote thing, like that's it. And I'm like, that's all Dash is. And so Dash innovated so much in creating the DAO, but it's just so rough. Like you can't run anything off of that. And so people are like, well, how are we going to? So we put an interface on top of it, allow for comments, and then allow for text and allow for comments. And then we realize, oh, this is like internet trolls like wet dream, because now anyone can jump in, create an account, start leaving any kind of comments, and have real world lasting impacts. It's like, what if you Twitter trolled Amazon and just managed to get Jeff Bezos fired out of that? Like, geez, that's a little crazy. And so it kind of ended up this Wild West thing, and then just so many people got brigaded by a bunch of trolls who had no votes, but they did have opinions which swayed votes in, especially people just get overwhelmed. Oh, everyone hates this proposal, it must suck. And then they start using their you know, some people worked very, very hard at building up the collateral from Mastodon. Some people didn't. Some people there's always like the right place at the right time early on. Some people were just in the right place in the right time in their hearts. Like they worked hard in their hearts by like believing this ahead of time. But then they just don't know how to manage or, oh, I'm just going to vote this way. And then as it was implemented, we had restrictions on who can comment. Well, just not anyone. It should just be people who can actually vote. And there's a little bit of that. And there are some people who, now you have someone who with one vote is able to, or, you know, dozens of votes or whatever, is also just able to say all kinds of stuff that most companies, most employers, most employees, most anyone in the real world don't have to get filtered out of their job application process. And it's just this weird, like, we have to deal with a whole bunch of, you know, some people being overt trolls, some people not being overt trolls, just this whole wild west of internet kind of feel, the chat, you know, the social media firestorm just to apply for your job. And this is such a weird thing. So
well,
what do you guys take on that?
I think it's a delicate balance. It's definitely not an easy question or something simple to address. There's probably no perfect solution either. But I think at its core, the way the system is set up is alignment of incentives. And whether you were smart or lucky enough to get in early, to get a masternode cheap, or whether you worked hard and have the conviction and belief in the growth and future of the network, you have that node and you have that right to vote. And what unites all of us as masternode owners is that we're voting in our own best interests. So the network is designed in such a way where even if you are a troll, you wouldn't hurt yourself financially just to prove a point, in theory. And even if there is somebody who's willing to do that, it wouldn't be enough to have the supermajority to significantly influence the outcome of the proposal voting cycle. Politics comes in, you're able to be very loud, you're able to attempt to influence votes, but I don't think we can escape that, whether it's a decentralized network like Dash or any of the world's major governments. It's just inherent to anything where voting exists. Companies are able to reduce that by creating hierarchies and structures within them, and it works for some companies better than it does for others. Typically, companies that get very large and have strong hierarchies fall to those that have flatter hierarchies. We are going to be very carefully monitoring the conversations that are happening on Nexus, and our goal very much is to create a constructive business environment where new members can enter the community and not feel intimidated or be ridiculed. And there's multiple ways of approaching this. Some is by either, you know, allowing people to report troll behavior and hiding the comments that are flagged as trolled by significant community members. This is similar to how Reddit approaches it, so that basically the top content rises to the top. More aggressively, and we want to avoid this, but it's within the realm of possibility, is enforcing stricter terms of service on the platform and saying, you know, hey, these are the rules for participating within the Nexus platform. If you want to be part of this conversation within the Dash ecosystem, you have to abide by these rules. Now, a person who may not agree with those rules can go on to a different platform like Dash Central, or use command line, or engage through Discord channels or forums to have their opinion heard. But, you know, if our goal is to create a professional business environment and there being a detractor on that platform, then I believe it's not only within our rights, but it's our responsibility to ensure an environment where the rest of the community could have a healthy and productive discussion.
It's a tricky situation though, because you don't want to fall in the trap to manual moderation, because then you get accusations of censorship and centralization.
Sorry.
Yep.
And I know previously when we spoke before, you actually mentioned Reddit, where you've got the upvoting system, so the good comments go to the top. I see right now there's the ability to upvote, but there's no ability to downvote. And we did discuss before that, you know, if there was a comment that got downvoted enough, like in Reddit, it then gets hidden. Is that something that's not going to be pursued, or you just?
It definitely is. It's not going to be a downvote. It would be a report
Right.
feature to actually report the behavior, and it may be some hybrid version of automation and admins actually having to go in there and do stuff. But what you bring up regarding moderation and centralization is interesting, and something we've been thinking about a lot. And personally, I see Nexus, this MVP launch, as a foundation that we put together. It's a feature set basically to match what Dash Central and Dash Vote Tracker and the Dash forums offered, but it is just a base upon which we can really build a city. And part of our vision for what we can build and how we can provide more power and more control and to the masternode owners and reduce centralization is by actually building out an election platform on top of Nexus. So this election platform could serve a whole variety of features, and at the moment it's just very much at an idea and concept stage and not materialized. It would probably take a year's worth of development, but it could range from something as simple as saying, hey, Nexus will be opening up 5 moderator positions and allowing for community members to basically put themselves on the ballot or run a campaign for themselves to take one of the positions, and having the MNOs vote and actually appoint these moderators. So they wouldn't be appointed by Jeff and I. It wouldn't be centralization through Nexus. We would create a platform to give more power to the network. And, you know, I think that would add more resilience to the network. I think one of the reasons why America has been able to be successful over a long period of time is that it has this election system in place, with its flaws, of course, with its limitations, of course, but it seems to be more resilient than monarchies or dictatorships that came before it, and able to adjust as times move along.
I just need to go find my yellow vest somewhere. But like, for me, the ultimate solution would be to have it as not automated, but hands-off as possible. I mean, if the Reddit system worked as well as it was, I mean, in extreme cases, if there is a report button, that'd be great, because I'd just like to see how it would fare first before, just to see how things get on. But while we're talking about the comment section and upvoting, downvoting, I actually thought one of the greatest value propositions that you had when we last spoke was that you was going to include translations into the comment section and stuff as well. Is that still going to be in the launch version, or is that something to come later on down the line? Because I think that offers fantastic value.
Yeah, unfortunately, the comment translation is one of the features that we had to cut from the MVP launch. It's something that it's part of that city that we're building on top of the foundation, something we could add pretty shortly after. But even with the top-up proposal, we still ended up about 60K short of what our projected expenses were going to be for the project. So while we were able to deliver a functional MVP with the vast majority and all of the core features that we initially outlined within the time scope that we outlined, there are some small trimmings and compromises that we had to do. So an additional month of development, just about that 60 or 70K, would allow for us to complete all of these features that got trimmed out.
Well, let's address this
What
now.
are you talking about? I thought the market was like not 95. Oh, sorry. Never mind. I figured it out. I figured out where my math was wrong. The bottom fell out of the market and just everything got.
Yeah, let's just for the community and for those unfamiliar. So you've put in, I think, was it 2 proposals now for Dash Nexus?
Yes.
Is it correct? And but obviously, and there was a top up one as well, right? If I remember. Yeah. So, but of course, the market for 2018 has been on a steady decline. What compromises have you had to make because of that? Because you were just talking about budgets and monetary. So like obviously plans have had to change. How has this hindered you? I think we need to address this because this really is going to be what shapes the future of Dash Nexus. So I think it's important to tell this side of the story.
Sure. So before we put in any of our proposals, we spent about half a year, and I personally spent about $30,000 putting together the concept and the proposal and did initial wireframes, designs, user stories, and documentation, and as well as spending the time to hold a bidding round to identify the development partner that we would feel comfortable working with, which in itself took a month's time. And when we began development, I believe the price at the time was north of $500 for when we posted our first proposal for per dash. And over the first 4 months of payouts, the price depreciated dramatically. And in the last month, we put out that top-up proposal that you mentioned that would give us the funds necessary to kind of maintain the pace that we had initially planned. Unfortunately, that proposal wasn't approved because there were other initiatives within the Dash community and the budget was constrained, and we completely respect that. But we made it also quite clear that not funding that proposal would extend the timeline because we'd have to reduce our burn rate and come back with a follow-up proposal. So luckily, the follow-up proposal was approved, and it got us enough funding to get to the stage where we are, which is a functional product, albeit with some minor compromises. But overall, the project cost did end up increasing because we had to reduce the burn rate and stretch out the timeline by an additional couple of months. So the funds that we were planning originally, the project ended up costing about 20% more than it did. I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but
I could do it for you here.
Thank you. But having experience within the software space and seeing some of the other software projects, how the cost can easily balloon, the timeframes could get shifted, even being able to stick within a projected schedule and deliver a functioning product with the money that was initially requested, I believe is a pretty significant achievement for our team. And I'm very grateful to the developers at STRV who were able to adjust their resources given all the fluctuations. There were times when we had to reduce our burn rate and bring it down to 1 or 2 devs working on the project. There were times when we were able to speed things up and bring 4 or 5 additional people onto the project. So that flexibility, also coupled with Jeff's and my own willingness to forego compensation and really focus the resources on the crucial development tasks, is what allowed us to deliver a project on time and on budget. Now, of course, there's so much more that we could do and would love to do if we had the original money that we requested and additional funds to build on top of this foundation. And that's really what our next proposal is going to be about, the future of Nexus, making sure that it's not something that gets released and forgotten as in its MVP stage, but something that is given the opportunity to flourish and take Dash to the, Joel, this is you. What level are we taking Dash to?
To the Nexus level.
To the Nexus.
Boom, boom. Hey.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been something a lot of us have been trying to tighten our belts, squeeze more out of. I mean, it's hard to get something done for no money, or it's hard to get the last bit it's done for no money, because everything costs money. Everyone, if someone works for free, then they don't eat, and then they shrivel and die. I mean, in the most dramatic cases, or it sort of reminds me of like my days being broke when I was having to travel, but I didn't have enough for gas to get there, so I'd have to just drive on side roads so I don't have to take the car to a certain speed, take longer to get there, so it wouldn't turn as high, short shift it, like get a little bit of a head start and just like let it coast to neutral on certain, just whatever you do to squeeze those last few fumes out to get you there. It's so, yeah, I definitely relate to that whole thing, but it's not really how you can run a well-oiled machine long term. But hey, from what I understand, there is something that is out there, or especially after 0.13 comes out.
Yep.
It's out there and it's permanent, and it's just people are going to be able to use it, and it's not going to be, well, you can kind of play with it, but without this big chunk of money. It's like you delivered something, which is pretty heroic.
Yeah, it's there and it works, and there may be some bugs, and there's a lot of improvements that we want to do. We're going to be publishing a pretty detailed roadmap and vision over the next few weeks.
You think you'll beat the core team to their roadmap publication?
I mean, I could hit send on it right now, so I believe they would.
Snap! Raising the level of competition.
But having said that, Core's roadmap is very important to us. As we were talking about earlier, there may be changes in governance objects. There are underlying changes in how the entire Dash system works, and we need to be very mindful of that within our own developer roadmap. So we've been in pretty constant communication with Core, everyone from Nathan Marley to Bob to Ryan to Fernando, making sure that we're aligned on the releases, on strategy, on the tech, on the marketing, and we want to continue building and nurturing this relationship while we're entirely separate entities. I believe there's a tremendous amount of synergy that can be gained by by collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're building something on top of Dash, and so obviously where Dash goes has something to do with where you go. So makes sense.
And it's the beating heart of Dash. Self-funding, self-governing, everything
Nexus
happens.
marks the spot.
Yes,
They're
this
starting
is what
to get
it's all about.
a lot worse.
So, if anything, I would really like to use this opportunity to encourage as many viewers as possible to go and check out the Nexus platform and let us know what you think. We've been sharing this with the beta group and with community members. We've been updating the community as we're going through this development process and taking in as much feedback as we can. But it is especially important as we launch into the roadmap, into the development of the more sophisticated features that go on top of this base MVP level, to make sure that we're building something the community wants and needs. And in order to address that, we actually put together a feedback tool. And Mark, or Joel, if you wouldn't mind sharing that link. It's an ideas and feedback tool. So community members, whether it's concerns about certain features and or ideas for further improvement and something totally new, please use this link to share your ideas. There is a trending section, so you can see what other users are submitting, and we could have a live dialogue, and this can be very valuable for our team in order to prioritize what features to build out first, where to allocate the resources should we be able to secure additional funding in the new year.
In terms of traffic and functionality and usage, Dash Nexus should be achieving a lot more than what Dash Central did before, mainly because of your concepts, which for people watching are basically pre-proposals, but restructured in a certain way, where Dash Nexus kind of host a bit like Shark Tank-esque, where you can have polls and stuff as well, where you pitch your ideas and then the community helps shape those ideas before they truly formalize into a proposal to go live up for voting. I think this is really exciting, and I think this is one of the main I think one of the main pain points Dash has actually had for quite some time. We knew people were putting up pre-proposals in the Dash forums, but it wasn't just getting enough eyes, enough feedback. So a lot of people were just going straight to the proposal section, and people were like, oh, why didn't you do a pre-proposal? And they're like, we did, but there wasn't enough feedback and input. Now it's all in one location. Now Justin, when he's working on his articles, will see what's brewing and what's happening in the midst, can see like, oh, look, there's all these ideas coming together. And also it might help bring different groups and teams together and make things much better. That synergy that Yuri was talking about. So for me, the concept aspect of Dash Nexus is something else that is new, and I think could bring very big value to the network.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the ideas section and concepts, one of the things that we've been mulling around, and it's definitely a little bit off on the horizon, potentially contingent upon the DAPI being released, but creating an opportunity for users to contribute funds towards the proposal submission cost. So right now, that's not a feature that exists in concepts, but there can be a little bar that sits there on the concept, and you're able to make a donation, and then naturally the concepts that have the most community support will be able to get those funds and post those ideas. And not only will that be a really strong indicator for the proposal owner whether their idea is wished for, but it could also broaden the pool of proposal owners, because there must be hundreds of people out there in countries like Venezuela and multiple African countries, and just anywhere around the world where financial resources are restricted, and 5 Dash could be an insurmountable sum to post an idea, but allowing for those people to bring their ideas to the table and have them turn into proposals through the will of the MNO network and the community would be fantastic. So
yeah, and this is not yet live.
It's not.
Okay, I actually think that's a very good thing, because before it gets live, it would be great to have a filter option where you filter concepts based on, do you have the proposal fee yet or not? Because I can see like literally entire continents submitting concepts saying, I need the proposal fee, but I have this great idea. And it's just like this giant spam of, because as someone who moderates a couple public forums, including Reddit and the Dash Talk Discord, I've seen quite a little. We've had to deal with our certain amount of not only vote begging, but before that, a lot of like begging for money for votes. And it's for proposal submission fees. And we actually had this happen a little while ago where someone kept on coming in and asking for donations for proposal fees over and over and over, and then stuff didn't happen. And it turns out it was one person who's impersonating like a dozen different people from a dozen different countries over a certain period of time, just begging for proposal fee donations and then just like running off with the money. So yeah, definitely before that becomes a thing, it would be nice to be able to have like a filter between, are we just talking about stuff that can be a proposal right now, or do we have to then fund the things? It'd be nice to have a little filter between that. And of course, I have this ideas and feedback link open right now. I'm looking at it. I'm just like, man, I'm about to spam the ever-loving crap out of this.
Please do. Please do. And, the Dash community is still quite small. It's still hundreds of people. Maybe there's thousands of users, but there's hundreds that are actively involved in the governance conversation.
Yeah, I could probably know them all, like personally. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Billy Joe.
If we truly envision Dash growing out into a global financial system, there will be thousands, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of people engaging on this platform. So it will need to change. It will need to evolve. There will need to be ways to address spam. But this is all part of a natural evolution, and part of the reason why something like this needs ongoing funding in order to be able to react to things that may be unforeseen that come as patterns of behavior. And as these patterns of behavior change, something that works for a while may no longer work when a toxic community member is introduced, or maybe it works with one toxic community member but not with 100.
And that's always been a I love challenges, not just personally, but I love them, just the concept of things like that, because you never grow without, you never really know something works until it works. And I'm just thinking about the most recent thing that sticks in my mind is proof of work, about how Bitcoin was created at this concept, and then Bitcoin grew huge and had so much mining power and just was thought the most secure network in the world. Just proof of work really works. They say, well, what about proof of stake? Centralization problems, this and that. This whole debate, and then just, I think the reason why, in the Bitcoin price specifically, of all the coins, goes a big spike and big old correction, goes down, and then was it this month, just boom, straight down, right when good old everyone's the friend of the podcast, Craig Wright, did his old Craig Wrighty stuff, and we just saw people actually start to fear, oh wow, this guy can get a lot of hash rate, and the bluff was, just attack and destroy one of the major networks. And what if this could happen to Bitcoin as easily? What if we just sit on a throne of lies and none of this is real? And you saw then people like instantly, Zen Horizon had a 51% attack. It actually happened to them. They actually got whacked. And then they're like, oh, our thing isn't safe anymore. And they start to figure out a solution of punishing miners who delay publishing blocks and stuff like that. And then now you have Bitcoin Cash figure out, oh, how are we going to do an avalanche kind of thing to do pre-consensus to figure out which is the first seen block that's valid, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, Dash, I think, has the most elegant solution, which is chain locks, to just how do we make sure that we leverage the staked masternode network with the miners and still just keep all of the best of both worlds. And just, I think that the challenge, good thing is people like Evan Duffield have been looking into collateralized mining and things like that for years, just thinking off like, oh, at what point are we going to make this more secure? Because it's not secure enough yet. Well, everyone's, it's secure. And then there's a challenge. People are like, oh shit, it's not secure. And then now there's solutions that are coming out of that. And then we're going to have even better technology, even better things coming after that. And so, as you mentioned, what happens in everyone plays nice, and then a toxic community member comes in and starts like spamming every single comment, and it's like, all right, well then we'll restrict it to only masternodes commenting. Then you have one masternode owner who just either has a destruction-based agenda or just, is crazy. Some people are just crazy, and then just spam comments, all kinds of stuff, spreads all, He didn't know that was a problem because, masters are inclined to just vote towards their self-interest. And, some of them, are just like Mr. Nuclear Option. And then, how do you deal with that? And then I do like to err on the side of Wild West, of you start with freedom, absolute freedom. You start with Wild West, and then you just kind of find little incentive tweaks to just sort of reduce it, just kind of get into something more manageable, get into something that's not quite as crazy. And it's just because the opposite is just, let's elect a leader who then is going to expunge everyone he doesn't like over time. And then you got the whole, Thamos thing. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast with Naomi Brockwell and Roger Ver last night, and they got in a little bit of a disagreement about why can't we all just get along? Well, it's because the forums are censored. You can't have a free and open discussion if they're censored. Well, which ones are censored? Can you still have it? Well, the whole talking about censorship really does, I think, way worse than just trolling. And as much as my very first thing I ever did for Dash was to fight trolls on Reddit. Literally, that's kind of what we're born. We understand the purpose of that. We understand the importance. It's just the thing we just never want to get to is too far the opposite direction, to where now you say something that's possibly not in the group think, and then you get shut down, and then now we got some real problems.
Yeah, and I think we have a very similar approach to what you're describing. Is putting in the minimal necessary controls and seeing what happens, and being reactionary rather than trying to force our vision or will onto the community. I think it's very important to let things evolve organically, and eventually we will have to add systems to keep things in check and in place and reduce spam and keep a coherent discussion and productive proposal cycle. But you know, it works.
Justin, have you got any thoughts or questions on Nexus?
I think one thing I was thinking about was when you mentioned the topic of raising the proposal funds.
Mm-hmm.
So would someone be able to raise those funds? Well, obviously we're talking about limiting it at the beginning where not anyone can just come in and ask for funds. There's some sort of control to prevent spam. But would they be obligated to return those funds if they don't carry through with the proposal, or maybe not carry through with the proposal to as high of a degree as expected?
Again, I just want to remind you that this is a total concept, total idea, far off on the roadmap. It's not like we have a detailed spec for how we're going to.
He hasn't even raised the proposal fee for this.
That's what the feedback page is for, Justin.
I'm typing away right now. I got to open another tab.
There are certainly multiple ways of approaching it. Off the top of my head, I think we would shoot for building an automated system that automatically returns the funds if they're not, if the 5 dash isn't reached. I believe it's a similar system to how Kickstarter works when all of the funds are returned to the donors if the threshold isn't reached. And in fact, it may be more complicated to build it because of the payout addresses and everything, but we may be able to design a system where the funds are returned if the proposal does pass as well.
I know, like there was Dash Donates, and now there's Mega Dash Raffle, and those were pretty good. And I'm not sure what Dash Donates is now. Mega Dash Raffle is still chugging along, but I know one of the major problems is that they're having is just getting people to visit their site and use it and donate to the project, where I would love to see something on Dash Nexus, because everyone uses it, everyone's going there, just like Dash Central currently is. So you already got the user base. So now it's less about getting people there and donating. Now you just have to get people to donate, which is one less step and thus easier.
I mean, I wonder how successful Dash Nexus would even be if they just renamed it Mega Dash Raffle. I think all the same things. I think you might be looking into a giant failure at that point.
No, wow, you killed it. All right, okay, I got a question. Right, I've always got a question in my back pocket just in case. So last time I spoke to you, Yuri, we were talking about the Dash Nexus API, because at the moment you're pulling stuff from Dash Central, but the ultimate plan is for you to have your own API, correct?
It's not only the ultimate plan; it's the current plan. We're actually no longer pulling any information from Dash Central, and I know there have been some bugs that were popping up on the leaderboard over the last day or two. I believe that issue should be addressed as of now or later today. But we are actually pulling all of our data directly from the Dash daemon, and on a technical level, why the NaN years and the inconsistencies in the leaderboard were popping up is because the Dash daemon was giving us a slower response time than anticipated. So what we're going to be doing now is actually caching that information and storing it. So if the response is too slow, it shows what was previously stored and just updates it when the response does come in. But more importantly, all of the information is coming from the Dash daemon, not from Dash Central. The information that we're pulling from Dash Central, where you see that Dash Central import, is just the proposal description or the proposals that were created on Dash Central versus on Nexus. Now, for all the proposal owners out there, you can go on to Dash Nexus right now, create your profile, and claim your proposal. And once you claim your proposal, you're able to start editing your proposal. So you could edit the hero image, you could edit the description, you could add videos, you could change the category, and really begin using the proposal creator tool.
That's actually a really good point. So how will the community know when this is actually live? How are you going to announce it? And also, just for proposal owners that are looking to submit a proposal next month, should they just submit a proposal on Dash Nexus, or do they do Dash Central and Dash Nexus? Sorry, Dash Central and, yeah, sorry, I did say that right. Do they do both, or do they just do one? Like, what should they do?
As I mentioned earlier, on-platform proposal submission on Nexus is contingent upon the release of version 13.0. If version 13.0 comes out on Jan 1st, we may make a push to encourage everybody to start using it immediately. However, to be safe, because there may be delays, maybe some additional testing, I would encourage for the January cycle to still do basically a dual backup where you post it on Central and claim it on Nexus. So we're still going to be pushing for the full migration onto Nexus. We want as many proposals on Nexus. You could create the concepts and begin having discussion around those on Nexus. But for the time being, I would say until we go through 1 or 2 proposal cycles with stability and fixes and everything proven on Nexus, I would encourage everybody to still use centralized backup.
Is that your nice way of giving like a friendly elbow to Dash Core and say, hurry up and bring out 0.13? Have they given you any indication how long it's going to be? Because you must have some inside track. I'm going to put you on the spot now. I know Ryan's going to kill me.
Yeah, how quickly can we get Yuri to break his NDA? You can get sued faster than Craig Wright's enemies.
Yeah. Next question.
I did have another question. I guess, what's the contingency plan on if the proposal somehow disappears, or if for some reason it doesn't copy over correctly, and if for some reason this happens at the very last minute, what's the contingency plan then?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Where does it disappear from?
I guess maybe I don't know exactly how it works in the back end, but let me morph this into another question then. Is there any chance that a proposal, if it's importing from Dash Central, but for some reason something goes down on Dash Nexus, would the proposal owner just go back to Dash Central and update it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's because so it's a 2-tier system, right? So the proposals don't actually exist on Central or on Nexus.
Okay.
They exist within the Dash network. And then Central and Nexus both pull information from the Dash daemon. So once a proposal's on, once it's published to and being broadcasted by the Dash daemon, there's no way it could disappear from there. If it does, we have broader network problems to worry about. Yeah. What we're doing is we're simply putting a pretty UI on top of the data that's coming in from the Dash daemon. So we don't really have any control over which proposals are shown or not shown on it.
Okay.
Does Dash Nexus have any like social media? Because how are we supposed to know when it's good to go? Or are you working together with Core and you're going to let them announce it for you? Or are you just going to announce it in the Discord? Or you're going to come over to Dash News if we're still funded? Vote.
We're certainly going to be ramping up our communication over the next couple months and encouraging people to shift over. We've been pretty quiet. People need to enjoy their holidays right now and not focus on migrating to a big new thing.
Is that a technical term?
Don't start giving Justin ideas.
As after this voting cycle closes and we set up the proper redirect links, we're going to be stepping up our communication, making a formal announcement, publishing our roadmap and our following proposal, likely following up with you guys as well over the next few weeks, and generally we're pretty available.
Let's be serious for a second though, because it sounds like you've delivering what you wanted to do, but you've got so much more bells and whistles you want to add to it. Now, you already addressed earlier on in the podcast that you've had some money difficulties because of the price coming down. How are you going to progress from here? Because you've got no funding left. So how can you develop when you've got no funds? So what is the future of Dash Nexus development?
without additional funding from the MNO network, it would remain in its MVP state. We're committed to this project, and we're going to continue coming back with proposals and continue pushing our vision further. With any luck and support of the MNO network, we'll be able to progress on that. But the hard truth is that without additional funding, further development will not happen.
Right, and because the development, because you couldn't just get any developers off the street. You had to get like very, very high quality developers. I forget from the company they're from. Did you say STRV or something? Or
yep, they're STRV. They're based in Prague. We were very careful when choosing our development partner. We looked at about 30 different options in the US and Colombia and Argentina and Russia, Ukraine, UK, just literally the full spectrum of what's available, and felt like this particular team not only had the best balance in terms of a track record and quality of what they've delivered, but also pricing that's reasonable. Because looking at US developers, you're looking at $120, $150 an hour. With STRV, we're getting top tier talent at about $75, $80 an hour. And actually, I'm going to spill little beans, but for the next phase, they're of course very conscious of the Dash price and very much believers in the long-term success of Dash. We've really become one team over the last 6 months. They've given us special pricing and are able to reduce what they're charging us temporarily because they still have a business to run. But in order to make it through the winter and to maintain the development momentum as we go through this rough period with really constrained resources, they're able to scale back a little bit on their end with the understanding and expectation that when the network does grow and the broader crypto markets recover, there will be additional funding and there will be plenty of opportunity to really scale up the business, as they want to remain a long-term partner of the Dash network. Isn't
there a danger here though? Because if they've been that instrumental to the development process of Nexus, if there is a gap in funding for Nexus development to continue onwards, they're obviously going to have to move on to other projects. You can't just hire any other developers from other teams and companies, because they're going to be starting from scratch and they're not going to have the knowledge and of what's being put before them. So they're going to have to, it's going to be quite a massive task to undertake. So you're in a tricky situation here because you need to keep those developers interested and developing, right? Because you can't let them go, right? So
it's a balance. The platform is built to the highest standards with very detailed documentation. So we are able to bring in some additional developers and have them pick up on certain pieces. Part of what we're actually going to be doing is encouraging community collaborators to come in and help us build out some of the network. I know we've had discussions with multiple developers within the Dash community who've expressed interest of building out certain components on a voluntary basis, and we haven't fully utilized those resources during the MVP because we were on a very, very tight schedule. It's hard to bring in new people and review additional code. For the future stuff that we're building, we're able to bring some people in and they will work with the STRV team to help build out some of the stuff. So the STRV resource will be able to review some of the code that the contributors are making. But swapping to a different development agency would certainly be inefficient, because the first few months that we were working together was really focused on bringing the developers up to speed, going into all of the intricacies of the Dash network, of how it's set up. It's complicated. It's not something somebody could pick up in a minute. It's not something that's broadly known either. It really does take time sitting down, working, learning, exploring. And now we are in a place where we have resources at STRV that are fully up to speed and really know this thing inside and out. So it does make sense to make use of that and allow for them to take what they have learned over the last half a year and really run with it, really take it further. So I think there's a massive efficiency between what they're offering us in terms of price and the know-how that they already have to continue development for the foreseeable future with their team. Finally, one thing that's also really awesome about them, and I mentioned this earlier, is their ability to scale down and scale up depending on the funding that is available that month. So Nexus is not their only project, of course. They have, I believe, a couple hundred developers total within their company. And while we have a core team that's been on the project for the entire time, they're able to bring people in and take people off the project depending on how much funding is available during that cycle. So with what we were talking about earlier, Mark, us planning to put in a pretty long, like a 6-month proposal, of course we don't know where the price is going to be 6 months from now.
Yeah.
But we are building it in such a way that we're able to augment the team, adding or removing resources in order to match what we have to work with and to really either power through the roadmap or go into more of a low power maintenance mode, slowly progressing through it and ensuring that everything is functioning properly.
I think this is why
while maintaining the know-how.
This is why I think it was really instrumental there just for you to break all that detail down, because I don't think people would have understood that, because I'm presuming hopefully proposal will go live next month, live with Nexus as well for further development.
That's right.
And I guess that's why the roadmap is instrumental in what you're going to be delivering as well, because asking for a 6-month proposal and having that roadmap, people can measure up to say, well, look, here are the deliverables, here's what's coming, here's why, it makes sense. And also, I guess in terms of development, it's not ideal to kind of like work for a month, have a couple months off, and then come back. So you've got to play catch up again. It's a bit of a headache. Of course, the treasury cycle right now is it's been frustrating for everyone.
Thunderdome.
Yeah, exactly. It's been pretty stressful for us. So I hope Dash Core release 13.0 ASAP. It sounds like you've been doing a phenomenal job. And just as a bit of disclosure as well, I've already registered Stay Dashy username. So anyone watching this, I've got it. I beat you to it. So
who is not Stay Dashy on Dash Boost?
One thing I do want to mention, and this is definitely a little bit chilling for ourselves, but while the treasury is extremely tight right now, and we are in a bear market, and crypto might not be the most talked about thing in the world like it was last December, we at Nexus firmly believe that now, and absolutely now, is the time to be investing in this critical, lasting network infrastructure. Because when the next wave of hype does occur, merchant adoption will happen, new users will come. But the projects that have the strongest infrastructure and the strongest networks will be the ones to succeed. So in my view, as a masternode owner, it's paramount to invest in infrastructure at this point in time. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the budget go towards core and evolution, because of the promise of what this infrastructure will bring. And I believe while different in character, it's the same in nature in terms of what Nexus will be delivering to the Dash network.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's interesting because everything is such a tricky balance, and it would be great to just have a crystal ball and know about the future and the markets and stuff like that. And maybe we need to talk to Ultradar some more and get his price predictions, because they seem to be on spot. Mark his words. Anyway, because when we have the ups, something like this, absolutely, for example, Nexus, and the continued evolution of Dash to the Nexus level, is we're just throwing those puns in there over and over. Is going to become vital the more Dash grows, and especially eventually you might just have a whole bunch of high-powered proposals that aren't just like, that seems pretty good, where you have like 10 candidates for one slot of funding, and they're all good. They're all really good, and you have to find like the 1 to 3 that are like, those are really going to take us to the next level. You know, these things are going to be amazing, and so. But then on the other hand, like right at this position of the market, it's just like, well, funding the Venezuelans, we're funding, you know, the groups that we know of them, we're funding the core team, and it's kind of it. There might be a couple more like people we already know and have already evaluated how I have intimate relationships with, so to speak, and it's not like that's needed. But then you can't just develop for when it's like. Then you get in like 3 months, the price goes up a bit and a whole bunch of new things come in, and just like now you need, and then, or you just like get busy funding all kinds of other random initiatives. And then eventually a few years down the road, it's just a complete, you know, shit show. And then you're like, if only we had paid for something better back then. And it's just one of those things of how do you decide what is worth funding at what point? And I think it's interesting with the case of Nexus, because people, I'm sure, anywhere in the last 6 months were just like absolutely no as far as like the price tag. It's been like a really hard thing to like stomach. But then it's like way back when it started, it's like it was an easier sell, and now we're kind of like a lot of us are. I mean, I am at least. I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm not speaking for Justin. I don't care if he wouldn't speak up and say anything, but I'm kind of glad that a lot of that got in motion before, because then like at this point it's just now everyone's like, now you can kind of release something without asking for a truckload of money, and now people are like, wow, this is amazing, it changed our life. It's like, yeah, aren't you glad you funded that back before you would have changed your mind? So it is what it is. I mean, these things go up and down, and it's a very difficult balance to kind of find. But I do like things like this that just lurch the ecosystem forward, and it's there. It's forward. It's evolved. You got those little minnow arms, and now walking on land a little bit. You're to the next level.
And I think part of my job is also to continue painting the vision of where it could go. It definitely takes a lot of time and effort and planning and energy and feedback from the community to figure out what exactly needs to happen. But you know, going from where Google was in its early days to all the features that it has now with G Suite and Google Maps and Google Docs and Google Assistant, etc., those features grow on top of this base. So it was probably pretty hard for people using Google in 91 to envision all the things that it's going to do today. But it probably would have been silly to cut funding for Google at that point and not allow for all of these things to flourish in its ecosystem.
Yeah, and I'm sure people would be looking at what the core team's been working on, and they're like, oh, when Evo, you guys suck, you've been doing Neverlution, Hopium, whatever the hell. And then people are going to, first off, just with 0.13, people are going to be blown away. This is going to be like, from what I can hear, I mean, come on. But like automatic instant send, private send, so much better. Just the new structure of the master nodes, just all the new things that's going to enable. And then when you got 0.14 and chain locks in and stuff, people are going to be, it's going to be like so next level. People are going to be like, why are you dinking around on those other like old school chains that like, oh yeah, this one still doesn't have power steering. So yeah, sorry, I think I triggered Justin so much he took off.
Man, I was just about to.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
He's back. Justin's back. Wow.
I thought I triggered you so much.
Such a tease.
I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Why are you such an attention seeker? Unbelievable. Always doing this. Always trying to steal the limelight. Okay, well, Justin, why the camera's on you? Do you have any more burning questions about Dash Nexus that you'd like to ask?
I don't have any questions. Just comment. I really love the interface. Great user interface. Dash Central was great by itself, but Dash Nexus just takes it to the next level. Just earlier today and last night, I was looking at Dash Ninja, and oh boy, that user interface! It has so much information, but you're just navigating through it. You can't see anything. So I just love the interface and keep it up and just keep improving the interface.
Give us a little more feedback and a little more funding, and we'll really polish it up over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been using the leaderboard forever, and pretty much, I mean, since it was around, it hasn't been there for that long. But everything's a work in progress, and I remember for a while it's going back and forth between Dash Vote Tracker and then the Nexus leaderboard, and there's obviously still some like rough patches here and there, but I do like the colors. I mean, maybe I'm like a chimpanzee, just like ooh, like look at that stuff. But I do like it. Looks nice and clean. I do like how you can kind of open the vote graph like right there. You don't have to open a new tab or anything. I do like the best thing I like most about it is the drop down where you can check net votes, vote margin, or vote margin as a percent. And vote margin is my personal favorite because it's just like I can. That's the money shot right there. That's what you really need. It's like, oh, how many 79 more votes needed to pass here? Oh, it's up by 15, or oh, this one is 79 versus the 65 here. Or I mean, it really helps me like put into perspective. It's just like, wow, well, this many votes happen here, and et cetera, et cetera. And I do like, I like just how everything is available to be. There's a drop down. I do, yeah. I think it's cool, and that there's the link to the actual proposal.
One thing that excites me the most is using it on mobile, and there are definitely still areas that we want to improve. But you'll see that when you're signed in, I don't remember off the top of my head if you need to connect your node or not, but on mobile, while viewing the leaderboard, you're able to vote directly within the leaderboard. So when that drop down pops open, you'll see 3 little vote boxes for yes, no, or abstain directly.
So you can vote on the go.
That's going to be fun to watch because already people play around with their votes a little bit. And when you remove the barrier, like you remove the friction to voting so much, I can just see like the Bitcoin roller coaster guy. Is he like the votes? Just
well,
I know the guy who did who actually originally did that cartoon. I might get him to do like a little Dash version and like have like a Dash Nexus background. Just whoa, we're passing, we're not, we're passing, we're not. Woo, all over the place.
One of our objectives definitely is to encourage more voter participation. So, again, referring to that ideas thing, and I need to put some of the stuff that we have in our Jira boards over into the new feedback tool. But pardon me.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something that you don't know, Yuri, that I hope you appreciate.
Go ahead.
Well, as Joel was just complimenting you about the aesthetics,
and Justin was complimenting too.
And Justin as well. Sorry, just once again.
Yeah, just Mark
Justin,
does.
You asked the question.
It's the hazing process.
So here's the thing. So we went through a rebranding of our news website recently to dashnews.org, which meant new logo, new everything. And I actually took inspiration from Dash Nexus when it came to the logo. So if you look at the Dash Nexus logo and Dash News and also the color scheme as well, obviously I used the official Dash logo style guide, which you can get from dash.org. And also I've kind of had a bit of a preview of the upcoming new dash.org website as well. And I wanted to have unity between all three of them because they're kind of like the main free resources, right?
Yep.
So I haven't actually told you that yet, but so in terms of the colors and the logos and stuff, and I'm sure if you go there now, you'll probably see where I'm coming from. But yeah, I wanted to.
I was looking at it just before we hopped on the call, and I did.
Yeah, the synergy, the unity. I want to keep it simple. So
I think it's very important for the community to come together, and while we don't have a formal authority that could come in around and enforce everybody to have the same branding, it's important for active community members and Dash funded organizations to try and adhere and really have a unified presence across the web. I think that's going to do wonders for us. So.
Okay. Well, Justin, you've got one main job on this podcast as you're stepping in for Brian, aka Mastermind. Mastermind at the end of every podcast typically prompts me and Joel saying, like, I think we should wrap up soon. So that's your job. So when the questions start running through, you got to say, I think we better wrap it up. So
I think we better wrap it up.
You think we better wrap it up? We've gone over time. Oh my God, Justin just said it. So I think we might have to do it. So Joel, I know I always throw it over to you to say, like, can you do the outro? But before you do the outro, if you would be so kind, if you could just talk about our proposal, why there's still 12 hours of voting time left, because I think you can summarize it better than I can.
Yes.
Save Justin, save a life. Come on.
According to Dash Nexus, we have, which is the ultimate authority on all things Dash and governance related at this point, and will for the foreseeable future. 10 hours to go for the voting deadline. Come down to the wire. This has been an interesting cycle because it's definitely been tight, and it's been over the holiday. There's been some late proposals, but for the most part, it's just been people have been having a real life as opposed to all this crazy nerd stuff, which, not probably no one in this conversation, but most people have been spending time with friends and family, and a lot of people have not been able to vote, and the votes are pouring in the last minute. So we've had quite a few heart attacks because our long-standing and illustrious proposal that gives us the ability to work 7-day work weeks as usual, etc., has gone through some ups and downs. We're looking pretty good so far, but let's not forget to everyone pile on and vote for your favorite proposals. We hope we're some of your favorites. If not, Justin's going to cry himself to sleep. And
I already know.
Yeah, Cry Hard is a Christmas movie. Anyway, that was a terrible pun. So everyone go out there and vote. There's a lot of jockeying for which proposal is going to be in, which can be afforded, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a situation where you can just pick your favorite proposal, just vote for it, and be done. There's a lot of I've noticed this. A lot of people vote for proposals they assume will pass, or don't vote for them because they assume they'll pass. Don't assume, jump in there, vote for the ones you like, and there you go. Just make sure to work this to the maximum, because we still, even under some of the more popular to be voted on proposals, you still have a third at best of available votes actually cast at all. So get in there so someone else doesn't make your decisions for you. Now, of course, is Mark going to do the outro on the...
No,
is he going to take over my part?
No, go for it.
Yeah, apparently people haven't heard me talk enough. I don't know who'd give them that impression. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get us as many views here on YouTube, because everyone loves those. And with this podcast also comes out in an audio-only format on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, whatever else. And that gets posted in the Saturday recap post of this podcast. So make sure you subscribe there so you get all the awesome times. You never miss a year appearance. So subscribe. Don't forget, we also do the after party because, in case someone doesn't get enough chatting with all of us, at the Dash Talk Discord, staydashy.com. You get in there, start asking around, where's the after party at? And it's just like this. You hang out, have a good time, 10 at a time, off the cuff. Some really interesting stuff comes in there. A lot of big proposals, ideas have come out of that. A lot of good feedback. A lot of a lot of backroom deals. Not really, but a lot of cool stuff has been discussed and brainstormed and stuff like that. So if you're really into getting into, I know some people actually decline. They literally empty their calendar out all Friday afternoon because they want to get in on the podcast, and then they want to get in on the whole after party in case they miss something important. So I'm just saying, you don't want to be that one who's just what's the after party? And then people are like, oh, you didn't hear?
Yeah, they want to go and join the cool kids at the back of the bus. That's what it is, the after party. So many great ideas and stuff has come from there. Anyway, Yuri, thank you for coming on the podcast. Very much appreciated.
Thank you guys so much for the time and the opportunity. This has been amazing.
Thank you for answering our questions and our answers. And now the community can answer the question, when Nexus? January. There you go. Bish bash bosh. So that was episode 84 of the Dash News podcast. Please make sure, if you've enjoyed this video, to like, share, and subscribe. If you click the notification bell, you can be notified every time we do a podcast. We do this every Friday, providing we get funded. So once again, prompt you to vote. Otherwise, this could potentially be the last podcast, and that would just be a nightmare. And I know you don't want that to happen. So
Well, at least we go out on a high note.
Yeah, at least we had Yuri on. What a way to finish. Go out with a bang. So yes, yeah, I will be going off to staydashy.com, the Dash Talk Discord, to do the after party. Please feel free to come by and say hello, and have a fantastic weekend as always. I hope everyone had a nice Christmas as well. I should have really said that at the beginning, but I trust that you did.
And we will have a nice New Year as well, I guarantee it.
Yes. And as always, people, stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. Have a good weekend.
See you the Nexus time.
Let's take it to the Nexus level, baby. Woo!
Whoop!